Welcome to this tutorial. Here I'm going to show you how to use the if statement for Excel. And this is an amazing and powerful function that allows you to add logic to your spreadsheets so that you can change what happens based off of the value of a cell. And I'm going to start from the perspective of a beginner, so someone who doesn't really know how to use the function or maybe hasn't ever seen it before. And I'll go through a bunch of examples until we get to things that are slightly more complex, but much more useful. So you are going to learn how to use the if statement and make some useful formulas out of it. Before we start, check the video description and click the link to TeachExcel so you can download the files for the tutorial and follow along. And make sure to subscribe and accept notifications so you can see all the new tutorials. All right, now let's start with what the if statement actually is. So the if statement is a simple single formula that's written out right here. So you just start typing in the cell equals if, and you're going to see it pop in right there. And Excel says checks whether a condition is met and returns one value if true and another value if false. As usual, their explanations are not very helpful. So let's go up in here and I'll click inside and you can see that it has 3 arguments, okay? So for the if statement or the if function, and it's called an if statement just because in programming that's how it's referred to, but here it is a regular function. So the if function, it has 3 arguments, logical test, and what to do if the logical test evaluates to true, and what to do if the logical test evaluates to false. So what is a test? A test is anything that evaluates to true or false. And I'll cover examples of logical tests in just a moment. The next thing is, what do you do if it's true? So what can you actually put here? Well, you can put text, you can put numbers, you can reference a cell, you can put formulas, you can put functions, you can put whatever you want really for this second argument. So don't feel limited by that. You can nest to your heart's content, nest functions and formulas in here and make it as complex as you want it to be. And the same thing for value if false. And at the end of this tutorial, I will leave you off with some nested if statements, so I can show you how complex you can make things. But now let's go to logical test examples. So I want to show you how this works. And that's the first set of examples right here. So what we have, just some hard-coded values, 1, 2, and OK, and a bunch of logical tests right here. So let's start off very simple. The easiest way to do a logical test is an equal sign, and then you just have, let's say, a number, and you compare it to another number. So read this out loud without the first equal sign. You can just replace the equals with is. Is 1 greater than 2? Yes or no, true or false? 1 is not greater than 2, so you're going to get false. False. All right, so how about this? Is 1 equal to 1? Yes, it is, so you're going to get true. True. So this is what we're going to do here for our test. You just put one thing over here, you put a comparison operator, and another thing to the right of the comparison operator. So what's a comparison operator? Just like you learned from school. You got the equal sign, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, not equal to. This is the one that's very easy to forget, and I'll use this in an example in just a moment. But this means not equal to. It's a less than and greater than sign back to back. So for the first example, let's just leave it at is 1. How about we'll do greater than or equal to true, which is going to return false. False. So there, we've made a logical test. Now let's go to the next one. And here I just want to show you that you can do it with ranges. So how about this? Is 1 greater than 2? This is just what we just did, except for now we are referencing cells instead of hard coding the values. False. And you can also mix and match. So right here we have is A for greater than 0. So you reference a cell for one side and you hard code the number for the other side of the comparison operator. You just need to get used to this idea of using comparison operators because it's how you get a logical test from something. And let's move on to this example down here where we go and test some text. So does this equal some text? When you check for equality with text, you use the equal sign, obviously, and you surround the text with quotation marks. So I just want to see if this equals okay. It's not a number, you must put quotes around it. So there we go, true. And notice that it doesn't matter if this is capitalized or not. So that means it is case insensitive. Now the other thing, because I'm showing you how to make comparisons here to return true and false, you can also use the output of other functions. So here we're going to check if, notice when I type is, you have a bunch of options. And pretty much all of these are going to return true or false. And that's all you need for a logical test, true or false. So let's go test is number. Is this a number, true or false? True. And I'll round it out with one more. Let's make it just a little more complex. We're going to use the AND function. Very helpful when things get more complex. It allows you to make multiple logical tests. So how about this? Does this equal 1? And does this equal okay? All right, so in order for this to return true, both of these must return true. We hit OK, and there we go. The partner function to this, by the way, I'll do a very quick example, is the OR function. Only one thing, only one test has to return true for this to be true. So let's make this one false. Is this one greater than 2? Nope. But does this equal OK? Yes. So it will also return true. Okay, so I spent a bit of time on the logical test because that's the most important part of the if statement. And this gives it its power. You can make very complex tests that span multiple cells and have multiple functions. You can put all sorts of functions in here. You can do all sorts of crazy things as long as it outputs true or false. Now let's go ahead and create an if statement, because once you have your logical test figured out, you're pretty much all the way there. You pretty much know how to do what you need to do. So let's go here and let's test if this cell equals retired, and let's output yes or no if it is. So equals if, now we make our logical test, if this equals, remember quotes because it's text, remember it's not case sensitive so I don't need a capital R, if A9 is retired, now comma, value if true. What do I want to do if this equals true? It doesn't just have to be a value. In a moment, I'll show you that we can do more than just output text. But this time, we're going to output yes. And value if false, so comma, and then go to the third argument. I'm going to output some text, no. And remember, text must be surrounded with quotation marks. So now here you have made your first if statement with the logical test right here, what you want to do if it's true, and what you want to do if it's false. And it outputs text. And just to throw a little example in right back there, if you want to output numbers, just to make everything clear, let us say you want to output 10, the numbers don't mean anything in this case, or 50. This is just to show you that you do not need quotation marks for the numbers. Now let's go ahead and make some more tests. We're going to do logical tests here. And what I'm going to do this time, since we've covered all of the concepts in these, is just go through them instead of building them from scratch. So each one of these is just a number, nothing special. And here in each one of these cells we have an if statement. So let's double click and take a look at it. So we have if A12 equals 1, then I want you to output the text 1. Otherwise output the text not 1. The comparison operator equals is, just like I mentioned at the beginning of the tutorial, what makes this a logical test that evaluates to true or false. And the next examples just show you other operators. So here we have is A13 greater than 0, and we'll output text based off of that check. Here we have less than 10, so is A14 less than 10? And everything else in these examples is the same basically. The only difference is the logical test. And here we have the not equals to operator. So if A15 does not equal 5, then do this. Otherwise, do this. This is the one that tends to trip people up a little bit, but it's not that difficult. You just have to take it slow. Let us change this to 5 and watch the text change. Equals 5. And that's the beauty of the if statement right there, is that you can see that it changes when I change the value over here. I don't have to do anything else, just change the value. Let's make this more than 10, and we'll see now it's greater than 10, automatically updates right there. And now let's go do some more advanced things. So what I want to do here is, and we're going to start this guy from scratch. So this time it won't just be straight up text. So equals if, and let's say A18 is greater than 0, then what do I want to do? Well, let us take this and let us multiply it by 2. And if it's false, let's just put not valid. Close it up and hit enter. And you see we get 10. 5 is greater than 0, so we multiply it by 2. So here you can see that, as I have mentioned, for this argument, you can put whatever you want. It just has to create a value. So we are not limited just to output text or just to output numbers. Put whatever you want to do right here. Just make a formula. What is really, really helpful, by the way, is to make your logical tests and your formulas over here to the right. So let's say that I wanted to do this and I wanted to see if it was greater than 0. So I make my logical test right there. Okay, now what do I want to do if it is true? Well, I want to take this and I want to multiply it by 2. So let's do that right now. Okay, and if it's false, what do I want to do? Equals not valid. So that's how you make the text a formula. You put an equal sign in front of it and then the quotation marks instead of just typing it into the cell. And even though it looks like text here, you can see when I double click, it's a formula. So right here, we have built the if statement. If this is true, then do this. If this is false, do this. You make sure everything works right here, and then just combine the guy right here in the if statement. And when things get complex, even when I do really complex if statements, I'm going to break it out kind of like this. So whatever I find difficult, I'm going to take it step by step. The formula is going to be deconstructed to begin with, and then I'm going to piece it together. And if you watch any of my more advanced formula or function tutorials, you're going to see me do that. And down here for this example, what I've done is we are going to see if A19 equals the text active, which it does. And if it does, we are going to output the cell B19, so the value from cell B19 right here. If this does not equal active, we are going to output the value of cell A19 right over here. So as I've mentioned, you can reference cells directly here in the argument so that we can output what's in those cells. So if this is, I don't know, green, now it outputs green. Back it up. And one fun little way to piecemeal this guy together that I skipped over is you can actually just go like this and do 3 cell references for everything. All right, it's a little bit overlapped there, but C18, D18, E18, good to go. And it should be exactly the same as this guy now, except for instead of putting everything in one formula, we reference the cells for each part of it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and delete that, and let us move on to multiple functions. Here it is time to use the AND function. Now don't worry, relax. All that we have here is one big logical test, and then some little text output for the true and false values. So let's build this out piecemeal, and then we're going to combine it back into this formula. So we want to check if A22 equals active and B22 equals green. So let's make sure, let's do exactly what I just told you to do, build it out like this. We're going to see if this guy equals active. That's a check I want to make, yes. And another check I want to make, does this guy equal, don't forget quotation marks, green. All right, so I've got my 2 checks. Both of these checks must be true. So I want to put them inside of the AND function. I'll go like this, and just reference these cells for now to make sure everything's okay. And now I've got the AND function and my two tests, and I can make my output, what was it, clear or redo. And we'll do clear and redo. Now let's begin to build our if statement from here. So you don't just have to type out this monster from left to right. First thing, we want to finish up the AND. So let's go ahead and pull in this first check. I'm going to copy it right now. Go over here, and I will delete this and paste it in there. And now I'm going to go over here and do the exact same thing. Copy this, go over here, and paste it in for F22. Now we've got the first part. All right. So let's go over here, delete this guy, and I shall copy this entire thing. This is now our logical test. It is completed. We have tested it. It works exactly how we want it to work. So make sure everything is good before you continue to put it inside of the if statement or the if function. So now we put it inside the if logical test. I just paste it right in there. Don't have to worry about errors. Don't have to worry about anything else. Now for the value if true, let's just go ahead and put some placeholders because I know I want text. So I just put two placeholders in there, hit enter. Let's go get clear. This is what I want for the first one. So I'm going to go over here, double click, paste it in. And this would work if it wasn't just text, of course. You build whatever you want to happen over here. And then you go over here, paste it in, enter. And now look what you have built. Let me go ahead and delete these guys real quick. So this looks a little bit more clear. There we go. And now, without too much effort, you have built an if statement that's relatively powerful. In fact, you have multiple logical tests within the first argument of it, and you have them nestled within an AND function so that both of these must be true in order to return true. And you've got what you want to do based off of the result of your tests. So piecemeal it like that. I'm going to hit escape and I'm going to hit Control Z to bring these guys back. Piecemeal it like this. Build it like this. It makes your life so much easier. Now what I'm going to leave for you to try is the OR function. So just redo what I did with the AND function, but just do it with the OR function right down here. And maybe you can change up the values a bit, make it a little bit different. But if you follow this structure right here, it won't be difficult, I promise you. And now let's take it to the last example, the most difficult example here. We are going to actually nest the if statements. And this just follows what we did right there. We've got a function within a function, but instead of having it for the logical test, now we have it for the value if true argument. So don't freak out. We have 3 sections, okay? If you have something like this and it looks scary at first, always just look down here to the arguments and go inside the very first parentheses to see where you are. We have logical test and highlight across until you've selected the entire argument. So we see this is the first argument, and then you can go down here and try to highlight across. This is the second argument, and you can see down here value if true is now highlighted. And then go to the third argument, and you'll see now value if false, the third argument is highlighted here. So we have 3 chunks. Now, how do I build this guy? Well, we go like this. First, figure out what you want to check for. So I want to check for if A26 is active. So let's go over here and let's do that. Does A26 equal active? All right, there is my first test. Now, what do I want here? Well, here I want something really complex. But what do I want if this is not active? Well, I want the text redo. Okay, so let's go over here and do equals redo. Now I've got that done. And what I'm going to do is move this guy out of the way. All right. So I've got that and this. And what I'm going to do here, do whatever works for you, is just type if. So I know that there's an if right here. And now let's go down here and build the if statement. What did I want to check for? Okay. If B26 is green, then I want to output clear, otherwise redo. All right. So let's make our logical test. Does B26 equal green? If B26 equals green, output clear. Otherwise, I want to output redo. All right, so this is if statement 1. This is value if true, value if false, and this is what we're going to put in value if true. So let us finish building that now. I'm going to copy this, and just like we did before, let's build the if statement, logical test, placeholders, so it makes it easier to copy paste everything. Copy the clear, go over here, paste it in, go to redo, copy that, paste this in. All right, looks like I've got a working if statement. Now you can change these values, make sure everything works how it should work, and make sure life is good. All right, now we've got a working if statement. So let us copy this, go up here, delete this, paste this in here. This is a lot of steps, right? But it's going to help you make bulletproof formulas. So now we have value if false over here, very simple text. Value if true, our other if statement, and our logical test right here. So all that we do now is to combine this finally into our last if. So I'm going to copy this, go over here, clear this guy out, and make the outer if statement, paste in the test, put in the placeholders, hit enter. All right, so we've gotten our logical test here put in. Now let's put in the difficult guy. Do not include the equal sign at the beginning because you do not use equal signs when you nest a function or formula. And just double click, so we select everything, paste it in there, hit enter, go down here, copy that, over here, double click, paste, make sure everything looks good. Everything looks pretty good. Hit enter, and just like that, you have created a nested if statement. And I'd say that if you can do this, follow the pattern that I've taught you here, then you can pretty much handle any kind of if statement. The only thing that you may need to do if you look at a confusing if statement is just break out the pieces and then dissect it piece by piece to deconstruct the formula. And I have an entire tutorial on deconstructing formulas, and I highly recommend that you check that out. But as far as building the if statement and using it and outputting different types of values with it and nesting functions within it, that's really all there is to it. And what I've left here at the end of the tutorial is just a note for the new if statement that you can use in later versions of Excel. It is the ifs statement that allows us to do away with nesting our if statements. It is a great function, and I put the link to my tutorial on it right here so you can check it out if you want to. But for this tutorial, that's it, and I hope you found it helpful. I hope you liked the tutorial. If it was helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe and accept notifications so you can see all the new tutorials.